Miranda warnings. We hear about them on television shows, in movies. The police are supposed to read a suspect his or her rights before they begin questioning. And what happens if the police do not read the rights to a suspect? Well, that takes us to this week's case. It involves a real case. It involves a young man, 19 years old. He was implicated in a homicide in a household burglary. When his father became aware that the police were looking for him, well, he said, "Son, you better turn yourself in. And before you do that, you better consult with a lawyer." Well, son did turn himself in, didn't consult with a lawyer. Police questioned him. They did an interrogation, asked him a variety of questions. At one point during this interrogation, the young man said, in a very timid way and very polite way, "Well, hey, is it possible, would it be maybe possible to have a lawyer in here or something?" The police ignored that. They continued their questioning. Later, the case went to trial. The various statements that were made by the young man were offered against him in the trial. And after the verdict, the case was appealed. Went up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. There, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals looked at the evidence. They read the transcript from the interrogation that was done by the police department. And they said, hang on a second. This young man requested an attorney. And you can see that right here in the transcript. He requested an attorney. Now, granted, he did so very politely in a non-assertive manner, but he did request an attorney. When he requested an attorney, he had a right to an attorney, and when one was not provided, all the evidence that he provided following that basically is excluded from the trial. It doesn't come into the trial because he wasn't given his Miranda warnings. And that's just the way it is, because if the evidence is not properly obtained, if the Miranda warnings aren't provided, the evidence doesn't come in. So what do we learn from this? We learn a very simple thing. And what we learn is that Miranda warnings must be given. Well, what are Miranda warnings? They're really very simple. It just requires that the police do provide a suspect with notice of their rights. What are their rights? They have a right to remain silent. They need to know that any evidence that they provide could be used against them. And they have a right to an attorney, and if they can't afford an attorney, well then an attorney will be appointed for them. Very simple, very straightforward. There's no magic language. A lot of police do use scripted cards that they read so they make sure they get it right when they're dealing with this. But there's really no specific magic language. Somebody just needs to be made aware of those 4 rights. And when they're not made aware of those 4 rights, well then, because they don't know what their rights are, they don't have a right to assert those rights. If they can't assert those rights, the rights are meaningless, and they have been denied of those rights. And these constitutional rights are preserved and are important, and someone who is, in fact, suspected of a crime must be notified of those rights right then and there so they have an ability to assert them. And that's the way we do things here in the U.S. of A. Well, we bring you this case, as we bring you cases every week, so you understand how the law works. I'm David Allen.